Hello, everybody. Or I don't think I have anybody watching, but anybody who joins me later on. Um, I had an idea for something that I could maybe do on a weekly basis. um, I figured, I noticed that it myself, I kind of oscillate between the three modes of material nature as they're described in Vedanta, which is Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. Lately, a lot of my life, I've been very active all over the place, here and there, trying to build my career. I've been very active in the mode of Rajas Guna, and when I'm in this Rajas Guna, Rajas, the Sattva Guna, the clarity of enlightenment, it's difficult for them to exist next to each other. It's like oil and water, right? They're like different states of consciousness which are transmuted back and forth. So, and then on the weekends, of course, I find myself in Tamas Guna, surrounded by people who are getting drunk and partying and things like that. So I have a lot of Rajas Guna, a lot of action in my life, a lot of moving around and building my career. The weekends, I work security, so I very often find myself dealing with the people who are in the mode of intoxication and ignorance. Um, and I seldom am able to lift myself back into the clarity of enlightenment. So it's the same with a lot of people in their lives. They have this routine of moving in the mode of action Monday through Friday. Friday and Saturday night, definitely in the mode of ignorance. And then we have no return to the Sattva Guna on Sunday. So I would like to set this intention to create maybe a 30 or hour long session that we could have on Sundays to lift us into the mode of Sattva Guna. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, in Vedanta, they basically break everything in the material universe from higher dimensions to middle dimensions to lower dimensions, from the different types of bodies that we have internally to our emotional states and our mental states, are broken down into three modes. There's darkness, activity, and goodness, basically. You could kind of break it down to like a water, fire, and air kind of thing, or water and earth, fire and air. Air being the most subtle is Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness, enlightenment. The middle, fire, is the mode of activity, Rajas Guna. And then, of course, on the bottom, water and earth, the turbid, heavy, mental and emotional states of Tamas Guna. So we know what those lower ones feel like, but seldom are we able to lift ourselves into the mode of clarity in Sattva Guna. So again, I would like to establish a weekly thing on Sunday so that will return us back into clarity before we begin our work weeks again on Monday. So how that I usually do this, how that I've done this historically in the past, is I host a satsang, which consists of me kind of reading through a sutra or giving a dharma talk, put our mind states into the transcendental reality, and then doing a guided meditation afterwards. So I have here some printed out sutras. This is the chapter on Manjushri's magical display. Manjushri Vikurvana Parivarta. Manjushri Vikurvana Parivarta. The chapter on Manjushri's magical display. Now Manjushri, over here on my tanka, right there, is the Bodhisattva of wisdom. So he's an embodiment of enlightened being, basically. So he's an archetype of an enlightened being. So here we're going to have a discussion with Manjushri, the archetype of the enlightened being, on what the state of enlightenment is like. So let's begin. And then afterwards we'll do a short guided meditation. Homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus did I hear at one time. The Blessed One was residing at Sravasti in the Jeta Grove in the park of Anathapindada, together with a great monastic assembly of 1,250 monks. Also in attendance was a great assembly of bodhisattvas as well as gods of the desire realm, gods of the form realm, and various gods of pure abodes. There, surrounded and revered by his retinue of many hundreds of thousands, the Blessed One was teaching the Dharma. Present in the assembly at that time was a divine being known as Great Light. Also present in the assembly was youthful Manjushri. The great god, Great Light, asked youthful Manjushri, Manjushri, when Mara creates obstacles to the Bodhisattva's unexcelled and perfect awakening, then Manjushri, what are the workings of Mara with respect to the Bodhisattvas? Now, Mara is something of like a demiurge. He's the embodiment of the false ego. So anytime that your ego is seized, you're seized by your ego, that impulse is said to be Mara. So it's a discussion between we're talking about how does the false that impulse towards the false ego create obstacles to our enlightenment. Moreover, bodhisattvas do not. Youthful Manjushri replied to the god Great Light, Divine Being, as long as there are actions, there are the workings of Mara. As long as there are aspirations, misapprehensions, or valuations, there are the workings of Mara. As long as there are desires, conceptions, assumptions, or superimpositions, there are the workings of Mara. Also, Divine Being, clinging to the mind of awakening is the working of Mara. Clinging to an attitude of generosity is the working of Mara. Clinging to thoughts of discipline, patience, diligence, concentration, and insight is also the working of Mara. So this is kind of, it's very intuitive, right? Like we all know, like when we see those videos and TikToks of people, they're going around and they're like videotaping themselves giving food to homeless people and shit. Like, right, what all the comments say? It's like, just do that without videotaping it, right? So that arrogance and that attachment to the good things that we do prevents us from receiving the blessings from those good things. And that's Mara's influence creating obstacles in the path of enlightenment. Being arrogant about generosity, esteeming discipline, grasping at patience, adopting diligence, practicing concentration with marks, and having discursive insights are also the workings of Mara. Any conceptualization about the good things that we do, any conceptualizations at all, actually is the impulse of Mara. And you'll find the more that you understand what the Buddha Dharma is teaching, enlightenment is really, nirvana is really a complete release of thoughts whatsoever and an absorption of our nature into a transcendental reality which it calls the Dharmakaya. Liking and wishing for the wilderness and falling into indifference are also the workings of Mara. Entertaining assumptions about having few desires, being content, engaging in ascetic practices, and reducing one's possessions is also the workings of Mara. To have assumptions and presumptions such as, I abide in emptiness, I rest free from marks, I rest without wishes, I rest without conceptual elaborations, I have obtained and adhere to the instructions of the thus gone one is also the working of Mara. Divine Being, as long as there are objects of thought, imagination, superimposition, sight, hearing, discrimination, or cognition, there are the workings of Mara. So enlightenment is really so subtle because the second that you conceptualize yourself as an enlightened being, you've lost the thing in itself. So Buddhism is really, it's sometimes it's mentioned like non-thought, non-abiding. So it's about being able to handle conceptual thought without reifying it with the false ego. So it's like in observing the essencelessness of ideas in their and seeing their pure form, without ownership. In that sense, it is very kind of like Buddhism kind of harkens back to this like kind of very Platonic, old school Greek view of the universe, where ideas are kind of their forms, their divine forms, which are incapable of being, we're only capable of producing the shadows of these divine elements. So in a similar way, like internally, when we try to take ownership of these big lofty principles like patience, no, generosity, and the qualities of enlightenment, you try to take ownership of them, you reduce them down to a level that they almost become like a demonic inversion. And that's what is described here as the workings of Mara. Divine being, as long as there are objects of thought, imagination, superimposition, sight, hearing, discrimination, or cognition, there are the workings of Mara. The god asked, Manjushri, from where do the workings of Mara arise? Manjushri responded, Divine being, the workings of Mara arise from exertion. Why is that? Divine being, in exertion, there is an opportunity for Mara. On the other hand, what could Mara accomplish with non-exertion? So exertion itself is the working of Mara. So I think what the sutra is kind of hinting at by saying exertion is that, from the perspective of as the original pure state of consciousness, it fell into duality through exerting itself. And similarly, an enlightened being who's returned to this primordial state of consciousness, by exerting themselves into the world, by, protruding the consciousness into the world and saying, this is me and this is mine, falls into that same trap as the original fall from paradise, is my opinion. And so we're saying that, like I said, like basically this demiurgic type figure Mara has an opportunity to take hold of us when we reify experience and say, this is me and this is mine. The god asked, Manjushri, how do bodhisattvas exert themselves, and how do they not exert themselves? Manjushri responded, Divine being, even while they are engaged with duality, they are not exerting themselves. Why is that? To abide in the world is to have engagement with duality. Divine being, exertion is a synonym for proper engagement. Proper engagement is a synonym for non-engagement. Non-engagement is a synonym for the absence of conceptual elaboration. Absence of conceptual elaboration is a synonym for proper engagement. So all throughout Buddhism, you're kind of getting this cosmology that the universe emerges, the fall from the universe is kind of the same as when an enlightened being gets stuck in duality. It's like it's the same dynamic at place. Like the universe itself, like whatever you want to call it, the primordial condition, the Tao, God, as that same impulse which caused all of the infinite types of suffering, sentient beings, that same impulse is the same as the mind of an enlightened being who gets trapped in duality, or any mind, which is pure from the beginning, of course. Like our souls are pure. It's just this illusory process of karma and false conceptions that continually causes us to exert ourselves and become trapped in duality. Divine being, not engaging with the eyes or form, is known as the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. not engaging with the ear or sound, the nose or smell, the tongue or taste, the body or texture, the mind or mental phenomena, is known as the proper engagement of bodhisattvas. Divine being, moreover, bodhisattvas do not engage with any affliction, yet they exert themselves for the sake of eliminating the afflictions of beings. This is known as the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. Divine being, moreover, bodhisattvas do not engage with the three realms, yet they engage with the beings who appear within the three realms. This is known as the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. Moreover, bodhisattvas engage in generosity free from arrogance, yet they also engage in attracting miserly beings. They engage in discipline without arrogance, yet they also engage in attracting immoral beings. They engage in patience without arrogance, yet they engage in attracting vindictive beings. They engage in diligence without arrogance, yet they also engage in attracting lazy beings. They engage in concentration without arrogance, yet they also engage in attracting distracted beings. They engage in insight without arrogance, yet they also engage in attracting ignorant beings. These two are known as the proper engagement of bodhisattvas. Moreover, bodhisattvas engage in emptiness without arrogance. The absence of any view, while also not being free from views, is to engage in emptiness. Emptiness is emptiness is empty of emptiness. Due to that emptiness, views are empty. Likewise, due to the emptiness by which views are empty, all phenomena are empty. To understand this, without having special pride in that understanding, is the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. Moreover, divine being, bodhisattvas engage in the absence of marks without arrogance, the absence of any thought, while also not being free from thoughts, is engagement in the absence of marks. The thought through which the absence of marks is conceived is the same as the absence of marks. Bodhisattvas understand the sameness of conceptual thinking in the absence of marks by means of conceptual thinking that is devoid of marks. To understand this, without having special pride in that understanding, is the proper engagement of bodhisattvas. Now, if I could elaborate myself just for a second, in your meditative state, when you face your unconscious, you're kind of facing a series of mental states, but they're might be whole memories of worlds and stories and things that you relate to personally, that you have generated in your mind from your life and from your dreams and from your fantasies and whatnot. The winding down of all of the unconscious polarization that controls you is really just to face all of these things in with a naked mind. You'll experience this as you go inwards, and I'm sure the people who are listening to this and following me, my YouTube channel, have spent years practicing already. I'm not talking to new practitioners, but you'll notice that there's one state that you always return to, which will be able to overcome all of these polar friction that makes you neurotic and that causes you suffering and that draws you back into the lessons that you have to repeat and learn, and the desires and the fears and whatnot. And that one thing is Mara. That's when you view the personalization, like you said, of the collective ignorance. When you personalize experience, and you impute a separation between phenomena. You impute a really existing ego here, shaped like my body, that's permanent. You know what I mean? That impulse is Mara. So as long as you're looking at your experience through that lens, oh, the poor me, and this is mine, and this is my body, and this is my thoughts, and this is the way that I am, and whatnot, as long as you're creating that thing in your mind, you're trapped. You can't get anywhere, and you won't ever get anywhere. So the goal of meditation should always be to free yourself out of that. And you get little leaps, it's like riding a bike. You know, you have your training wheels on first, you use your binaural beats, or you have someone like me to give you a guided meditation or whatnot. You have your training wheels on, and that riding the bike is the naked state of rigpa, as they call it in Tibetan Buddhism, is emptiness. Shunyata is to be able to abide in the primordial condition of infinite potential, in which all things are seen to be interconnected. It is a kind of multidimensional view, because instead of looking at your body as yourself, you look at your mind contains all things, right? Like, so everything in the universe is just an extension of your mind, right? And your mind is an extension of everything in the universe, and it's not possible. There's nothing solid there. Like, we're even learning this in physics. Like, there's nothing solid preventing things from touching. Like, this is just a hologram, right? Like, we're literally the same scientific rationalization that causes your brain to like separate all things. That same scientific process, the most modern forms of that scientific process, is finding that there's fucking nothing there. Like, Buddhism is being validated in real time right before your eyes, that everything is in this quantum entangled state, right, of waveforms. So that's what dependent origination means, is that every form is entangled with everything else. And so there's no ego in it. There's no ego in forms. So that meditative state that you're trying to hold on to like a bike is an egolessness, where you're not rejecting forms. It's not like, oh, there's some egolessness out here. No, the forms themselves are egoless. Me right here, right now, talking to you. My hand is handless. My voice is voiceless. Everything that exists does so liberated from itself. And that's why that we say in Buddhism that all phenomena are liberated from the beginning. Continuing. Moreover, divine beings, bodhisattvas, engage in the absence of marks without arrogance, the absence of any thought, while also not being free from thoughts, is engagement in the absence of marks. The thought through which the absence of marks is conceived is the same as the absence of marks. Bodhisattvas understand the sameness of conceptual thinking and the absence of marks by means of conceptual thinking that is devoid of marks. To understand this, having special pride in that understanding, without having special pride in that understanding, is the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. Moreover, bodhisattvas engage in the absence of wishes without arrogance, yet they also engage in willfully taking birth. Although they make aspirations, they do not form habitual thought patterns. Although they make aspirations, they are not involved in discursive thoughts due to the aspirations. Birth after birth, they are free from the views of the two extremes. They are free of the views of clinging to me and mine. Birth after birth, they are free of tumbling from death to rebirth. To understand this without having special pride in that understanding is the proper engagement of the bodhisattvas. Moreover, divine being, the most excellent proper engagement of the bodhisattvas is as follows. With their knowledge of insight, bodhisattvas do not exert themselves, yet they engage in gathering all virtuous qualities through their knowledge of skillful means. With their knowledge of insights, bodhisattvas engage in the lack of a self, the lack of a being, the lack of a life principle, the lack of a soul, the lack of a person, yet they also engage in the ripening of all beings through their knowledge of skillful means. With their knowledge of insight, bodhisattvas engage in neither accepting nor rejecting anything, yet they engage in embracing all phenomena through their knowledge of skillful means. With their knowledge of insight, bodhisattvas engage in indivisibility of all Buddhas and the realm of phenomena, yet they also engage in venerating, honoring, worshipping, and serving all Buddhas through their knowledge of skillful means. With their knowledge of insight, bodhisattvas engage in all Buddha fields as being open, as being the field of space, yet they fully engage with the ornamental array of qualities in the Buddha fields through their knowledge of skillful means. So, thus, they're talking about proper engagement. All right, so I would like to, let's do a brief guided meditation, everybody. Let me see if I can pull up the short Vajrasattva meditation. So this is a really good Tibetan Buddhist meditation. The idea is kind of to put yourself in the right mentality of not holding on to grudges and not holding on to wrong views. So if you would please join me, sit somewhere comfortable with your back straight. Take a deep breath. You're going to release the tension in your body, beginning with your head, your shoulders, chest, especially your belly. You feel that tension in your belly, just release the muscles so you're in a relaxed, neutral kind of state. Release the tension in your waist and your legs. You can let your eyes kind of rest, not completely closed, not completely open. Keep your eyes forward, like you're looking at the tip of your nose. And just rest your mind. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until enlightenment. I take refuge through the perfection of wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Supreme Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until enlightenment. I take refuge through the perfection of wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Supreme Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until enlightenment. I take refuge through the perfection of wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness in the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings have the supreme happiness which knows no suffering. May all sentient beings abide in immeasurable equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to near and far. May all sentient beings have happiness in the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings have the supreme happiness which knows no suffering. May all sentient beings abide in immeasurable equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to near and far. Om Sobha Shuddho Sarva Dharma Sobha Shuddho. cultivate mindset of pure benevolence, genuinely wishing for the happiness of everyone else without any scruples or attachments whatsoever. That's called bodhicitta. I'm going to do some prayers before the Vajrasattva visualization, so just relax, focus on your breath, and I'll recite the prayers. You can kind of just focus on the meaning. Almost every action I do 24 hours a day is motivated by worldly concern, attachment to the comfort of this life. It is like this from birth to death in this life, and has been like that from beginningless rebirths. Nearly every action I have ever created has been non-virtuous, the cause of suffering. Not only that, but continuously I have also been breaking my vows. Worst of all, I have created the heaviest karma in relation to my virtuous friends, getting angry at them, generating wrong views, having non-devotional thoughts towards them, harming their holy body and disobeying their advice. Having these negative imprints on my mental continuum is unbearable. It's as if I've swallowed a lethal poison. I must practice the antidote right away and purify all of this negative karma without a second's delay. Many people my age or younger have died. It's a miracle that I'm still alive and have this incredible opportunity to purify my negative karma. Death is certain, but its time is most uncertain. If I were to die right now, I would definitely be reborn in the lower realms. Because I could not practice Dharma, I would remain in the lower realms for countless aeons. Therefore, how unbelievably fortunate I am to be able to purify my negative karma right now without even a second's delay by practicing the Vajrasattva meditation. But I am not practicing this Vajrasattva purification for myself alone. The purpose of my life is to release all hell beings, ghosts, animals, humans, demons, gods, and intermediate state beings from all their suffering and its causes, and lead them to unsurpassed enlightenment. In order to do this, I must first reach enlightenment myself. Therefore, I must purify all my negative karma immediately by practicing the Vajrasattva meditation recitation. So I'll show you guys quickly what Vajrasattva looks like. There's Vajrasattva. Should I just leave this up for a little bit? I'll leave Vajrasattva up for a little bit. Alright. Above the crown of my head, seated upon a lotus and moon seed. So now we're doing a visualization, everybody. Above the crown of my head, seated upon a lotus and moon seed, is Vajrasattva father and mother. It means they're united in sexual union. Their bodies are white. Each has one face and two arms. He holds a dorje and a bell, she a curved knife and skull cup. They are embracing each other. The father is adorned with 6 seals, the mother with 5 mudras. He sits in the Vajra posture, she in the lotus posture. Vajrasattva is my root guru, the holy mind of all the Buddhas, the Dharmakaya, who is out of his unbearable compassion, which embraces me and all other sentient beings, appears in this form to purify me and all others. On the moon disk at Vajrasattva's heart stands a hung syllable, encircled by a garland of the 100-syllable mantra. A powerful stream of white nectar flows from the hung and the mantra garland, and I am cleansed of all sickness, spirit harm, negative karma, and obscurations. So if you know the Vajrasattva mantra, you can chant along. If not, you can just listen and focus on the visualization while I chant it. So you're visualizing Vajrasattva, male and female, above the top of your head. Now, from out of their union is a white nectar, and it flows over the top of your head, and it shoots down the center of your spine like a fountain of light, and you see all of this black, oily goo, all of your negative and your impurities, and all of your, bad karma is shooting out the bottom of your body and going into the earth. Om Shri Benza Heruka Samaya Manupalaya Heruka Tenopa Tita Tito Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sawasede Mebrias Sawakama Susame Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benza Heruka Mama Manza Heruka Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benza Heruka Samaya Manupalaya Heruka Tenopa Tita Tito Mebawa Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anirata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benzaheruka, Samaya Manupalaya, Heruka, Tenopa, Tita Dido Mebawa, Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anirata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benzaheruka, Samaya Manupalaya, Heruka, Tenopa, Tita Dido Mebawa, Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anurata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benzaheruka, Samaya Manupalaya, Heruka, Tenopa, Tita Dido Mebawa, Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anurata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benzaheruka, Samaya Manupalaya, Heruka, Tenopa, Tita Dido Mebawa, Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anurata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Shri Benzaheruka, Samaya Manupalaya, Heruka, Tenopa, Tita Dido Mebawa, Sudokaya Mebawa, Subokaya Mebawa, Anurata Mebawa, Sawasidi Mebrehas, Sawakama Suzume, Chitam Shriam Kuruhung Haho Bhagawan Benzaheruka, Mama Manzaheruka, Bhava Mahasamaya Sato. From the crown of my head, Guru Vajrasattva says, Son of the race, your negativities, obscurations, and broken and damaged pledges have been completely purified. Before Guru Vajrasattva, I vow never again to commit those negative actions which I can easily abstain, and not to commit them for even a day, an hour, or at least a few seconds, not to commit those negative actions from which I find it difficult to abstain. Guru Vajrasattva is extremely pleased with your pledge. Vajrasattva, father and mother, melt into light and dissolve into you. Your body, speech, and mind become inseparably one with Guru Vajrasattva's holy body, speech, and mind. In emptiness, there is no I, creator of negative karma. There is no action of creating negative karma. There is no negative karma created. May the precious bodhicitta, the source of all happiness and success for myself and all other sentient beings, be generated within my own mind and in the mind of all sentient beings without even a second's delay, and may that which is generated be increased. Through the power of our practice, respect, and praise, may all sentient beings benefit wherever they may be, causing sickness, violence, and poverty to subside. May dharma and good omens ever increase. Sarva Mangalam, may all beings be happy. Got 3 people left. If anybody has anything they want me to talk about while I'm still here, or any questions or anything like that, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll be glad to I got nothing to do for another hour or so until I gotta get up and do my Rajasic activity. Actually, it's crazy, man. Like, my whole goal right now in life is to square the circle of this, of all of this stuff, and what I do at work. I actually, I ran the security for a fucking fashion show yesterday. It was a major brand. It was a Balmain from France. Um, it's surreal to have these two kind of Rajasic world on one hand and then Sattvic world on the other hand. And even Prabhupada would use the term Shuddha Sattva to indicate like a state even higher than Sattva, which is probably closer to enlightenment and less of just a normal purity, a normal goodness, but a super high level of goodness that's enlightenment. Trying to square the circle between those two things is my main thrust in life right now. I don't know whether Friend of Crows is still here. Yeah, I know you're Tamasic. You're mean. You're fucking mean. Um, Mara or the Demiurge to be a personalization of our collective ignorance. I 100% agree with that. The Demiurge, I feel, is the system. Okay, so I'm almost done with this book that I'm writing, and in the system of my book, the microcosmic things, like you said, our ignorance, right, our false ego, those microcosmic effects are the same as the macrocosm. Like, they're not separate. So it's like an idea in my mind, like ideas or parts of reality, which are ideas, right? The elements are ideas. Form is an idea. Our emotions are ideas. Everything's an idea, right? So the macrocosmic Platonic idea of the demiurge, and the individual expressions of our false ego, in my mind, it's like a cell on a body. Like, so each of our individual manifestations of the false ego together are the demiurge, right? Like you said, our collective ignorance. Is that it? Feel free to toss me donations, guys. My payment processor is online. You can do super chats as well. All right. Well, if nobody has any questions about anything, then I'm going to head out. I gotta get ready for work. Thank you, guys, and I will try to host another one of these again on Sunday.